Well, welcome everyone to this opportunity to impact young people throughout the world. My name is Bill McGrane, and I had the opportunity about 3 weeks ago to attend a funeral of Michael Wickett. Michael Wickett was a national well-known speaker who was one of our graduates of the McGrane Institute. Now we go by McGrane Global Centers. And when Michael, at his funeral, I had the opportunity to meet one of the people who he has been a mentor to him and someone who has just been a good friend to him. And as we started to connect, his name is Jim Tuman. And Jim, if you'll welcome yourself and say any opening comments you'd like to make.
Um, my name is Jim Tuman. I've been a global speaker. I've spoken at more than 2 million students in more than 2,000 schools in every state and 11 foreign countries. And this has been my mission.
And so when we met each other, we had that common interest in helping young people grow up to become the adults that we need in our society. And so for those of you who are listening, those of you who are listening to it live, or if you're watching on replay, this is a connection that is happening for the first time. You're a part of history right here that will have a ripple effect for generations to come. And I wanted to give you a little overview of where we're going. So we created a little PowerPoint that I'm going to share here with you so you can get a little taste of where we're going today. And, each of us is molded and remolded by those that have loved us. And oftentimes we don't know that impact until later when it just is happening that we connect with people that we didn't even realize that we were having that impact with. And so Jim is one of those people who my father had a great statement. He said, knowing what you're looking for helps you to recognize it when you see it, hear it, and feel it. And so, Jim, when I first got exposed to you, I knew that you were a man on a mission and that you were committed to helping young people not just go from where they are, but to where you'd like them to be, which is to be whole people. And so each of us has an opportunity to be able to do that. So, Jim, if you would, maybe just kind of take over and tell them a little history about yourself and what we want to accomplish here today.
First of all, for the audience, I'm a product of 3 suicide attempts as a high achiever kid in high school. I was Mr. Everything in high school, but I was terribly alone. And my parents, I was a trophy kid. When my parents would introduce me, they would introduce me as, Jim Tuman, the scholar, or Jim Tuman, the class leader, or Jim Tuman, the sportsman. And I really just wanted my parents to be able to just say, I'd like to introduce my son, because that was the key for me. I didn't want all of the labels. I didn't want all of the things that, people, might love to hear. I wanted just the love that I needed as I was growing up.
So, Jim, you wanted to do this podcast today so that we could introduce people to our work together. So I'm going to let you just take over and go from there.
That's great. For those of you, again, who are listening and those in the future that will listen, we've kind of, we talk about suicide in a problematic way, and we talk about suicide in a way that doesn't give us hope and doesn't give us a chance to turn it around, because suicide affects a lot of people, and each suicide affects, it's like a ripple effect. When you throw a stone into a lake, it just spreads. And this is what happens when people, are dealing with this situation. And suicide is, on most situations, you don't get a second chance. So if you say to somebody and you're a bully and you say to somebody and that person takes their life, or if you say to somebody, you look fat, and then go on social media and just keep building that momentum up there, you're creating something of a loss of life. And we need today to be reverent about loss of life because, again, no second chances with this. So consequently, I today would love to share concepts and ideas that really work, that give you a chance to turn some of this around. It's at epidemic proportions. It is so challenging out there, and it's still not being talked about often enough and still not being looked at as an opportunity to be able to turn this around. And my wife and I, with the help of David Sawicki and Lisa Sawicki, we wrote a book. I had over 100,000 letters in my filing cabinets from kids that have opened up and shared to me. And what happened was that I was looking at that one summer day, and I thought, if I pass away, these letters will never be out in the world. And my whole focus with the work that I do is to give kids a voice, to give them a voice to tell us what they want and need, not us guessing, but to tell what, they really want and need. And these letters were so powerful. I want to share just a couple of sentences on the chapter on suicide. At the moment, I didn't care. I wanted to disappear. I didn't realize that death and disappearance aren't the same thing. What they said was, what this young girl said was that I wanted the pain to go away. I didn't really want to die. And what that spoke to me in volumes is that kids don't want to die. And a lot of times adults don't want to die. They just want this pain to go away. And if we were able to help them, if we were able to, inspire them. I had a young woman that called me just for one reason. She said, Jimmy, she said, if someone smiles at me today, I won't take my life. And how sad it is that if that day nobody smiled at her and she took her life. As simple as a smile, as simple as caring. Now, I work around the concept, climate change is out there all over the place, but there is climate in schools, there is climate in families, there is climate in, relationships. And this particular climate, gives way to whether it's supportive or whether it's reactive. And if we're in a reactive situation, then it's volatile. And that's when kids give up. And that's when kids don't look at opportunities and don't look at the future in any type of way. So what we need to do as a society, we need to be able to, first of all, listen to kids' voices, and then second of all, to create programs and ideas that will help turn this around. Now, schools on so many levels can be vicious, they can be hurtful, and kids do that to each other. And interestingly enough, when a kid takes their life in the school, everybody goes into a mass mourning. And it's amazing. They'll say, well, that kid was so wonderful. And oh, I'm so sorry he's gone, or whatever. They never said that to a kid ahead of time. They never said that to a kid. They just tore some kids to shreds. And that's what's happened in our culture. And so what I've done in schools is I've encouraged, and there's a lot of schools out there doing it because of it, to have a focus group, a kids focus group that met with administrators at least once a month, if not twice a month, and shared with administrators the problems that kids see in schools. Because kids live in the mire. They live in what's happening. And unfortunately, kids' voices are also squelched. So having this youth focus group will give schools an opportunity to be proactive, to look at, what to do before it comes into a collision situation. And this is critical. And when I came back from Columbine, a reporter asked me, Jim, is this going to be a one and done? And I said, no, this is going to be the beginning of an onslaught. And the reason I said that, and I didn't want to say it, I was hoping I would be so totally wrong. But what it was that the kids who shot up, Columbine, were being bullied, and they were being torn to shreds. And they thought that the only way to make a statement was a volatile statement. And in that volatility, kids lost their lives. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that has continued on. And it's gotten to be epidemic. It's sometimes 2 and 3 mass shootings in our country every day, because this is what, people think is going to get rid of the hate that they're experiencing, but it doesn't. Hate, I want hate to be overridden by love and by support and by caring.
So Jim, before you go a little further, let me just give people an introduction, because what you may not be able to see here is we have 6 keys to solutions for youth that we want to share with you all today. And one of the things that you can see, we give some background about Jim. He's a world-renowned youth speaker. He's the founder of Jimmy's Kids. He's spoken to over 2 million youth all over the world. Jim's appeared on broadcast TV, including ABC, NBC, CBS, National News, The Today Show, The Oprah Winfrey Show, as well as been given a commendation by many senators throughout the country. His life purpose is helping youth cope with the issues of bullying, teen suicide, and alienation. And yours truly, Bill McGrane, I'm the creator of the program called Get High on Life with Self-Esteem. When I was age 16, I was concerned about what was going on with young people, just like Jim's talking about. And so I researched for 2 years, what are the needs of young people to prepare them for life? And that's how I created the Get High on Life with Self-Esteem program. We're going to talk later about that. I'm also president of the McGrane Global Centers. And my focus has been helping parents, teachers, and those who influence youth to have the life skills so that they can be prepared for life. So in this session today, we're talking about how we can have kids be safe, to be the brilliant, original young people that they've been designed to be. And Mark Victor Hansen this is a quote from Mark Victor Hansen, who basically said that this is a safe, brilliant, original youth program that can help serve anyone who needs to identify their problems and then permanently resolve them in the briefest possible time, Many of you might know him. Mark Victor Hansen is the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul and the 1 Minute Millionaire. Another person, Pastor Cletty Keith, here in Northern Kentucky, Heritage Fellowship Church. He says, I personally have witnessed the benefits of the Get High in Life program for youth and support it so much so that we've offered it at our church, Heritage Academy School. And then finally, Barbara Fisher, a PhD, director of United Psychological Services, says, I truly believe this program was placed on this earth to provide divine guidance, and I thank God that I had the good fortune to participate in this seminar. I would strongly suggest this seminar to anyone. So today we want to share with you 6 keys, and what Jim is just talking about is the first thing is to spot the warning signs. What are the warning signs that young people indicate whether they're known or not known? And Jim, if you want to take a minute and just talk about that.
I often, work with families who don't see the warning signs. And consequently, I'll give you an example. I've been working with this family of a 6-year-old. She was being picked on at school. She came home, she told her mom and dad, about being picked on, and the mom and dad completely denied her feelings and didn't even spot what she was trying to say to them. And instead they said, don't pretend to be sick. Don't pretend, you're not going to stay home. And so consequently, she went back and the bullying was still there. And she came home. She was a latchkey kid for about 5 minutes. She climbed in the garage, pulled the garage door down, turned on the key, and sat in the car until she died. 6 years old. So these warning signs are so powerful, and you need to take them seriously. And I tell parents all the time, don't roll the dice with your kids' lives. Give your kids a chance to really open up and let you know what's going on inside for them. And if you don't do that, then they will have all kinds of thought processes that don't, get to the bottom of what these problematic situations are.
Another key issue that we see is isolation. If you start seeing your children separating themselves from you, their friends, school, sports, or interests, that's another key that you can see. Here's an example of a young 12-year-old who went through the program and they said, I learned how to manage my emotions. Isn't that an interesting thing? And I should appreciate myself more and I should love myself more. You should go. It's really fun and cool. Now, to get a 12-year-old to say something like that, that's an indication that something significant is going on. The second key that we wanted to share with you today is to build unshakable self-esteem in kids. And so, Jim, do you want to comment about that?
What we need to do is to see the best in the kids in our lives, whether they be the children in our lives or the children's friends in our lives. And what we need to be able to do is to, give them a sense of positivity and what they're doing, and oftentimes just say, thanks for being on the right course. Thanks for, for doing, helping us out the other day. Giving kids self-worth is so important because kids usually get the bad end of the stick.
My definition of self-esteem is the self-respect a person feels, and underline the word feels, for themselves. And oftentimes we are brought into a world of self-image, a mask, and we have to learn early on in life to create a facade because it's not safe for us to be ourselves. And obviously, young people are trying to find their identity, unfortunately, through social media, through their peers. And as a result of that, they lose their real identity. So the second key of building self-esteem is so really important. The third key is to replace silence with connection. Silence with connection. Jim, do you want to talk about that?
Um, in order to get um, past the silence of kids not running into your house, running up to their room, closing their door, and not coming out. And it's the connection that we need to be able to listen to kids and to open up a safe spot where kids can share. Because one of the things that happened in my situation is I was concerned by telling kids that I had tried to take my life. And I thought to myself, I'm here to help the kids, not to have them listen to my problems. Well, when I got through the day that I shared, my situation, there was a line around the block of kids wanting to talk to me, wanting to share with me. And there's an us and them in terms of adults and kids. And it's always been this type of, kind of distancing that makes it difficult for either one to understand each other. We have to bridge this gap by giving them a safe space.
So one of the things that I've discovered in working with young people is that oftentimes parents ask the normal question, well, how was your day? And the kid will typically say, well, cool or fine or, whatever they say. And it's usually a distraction because they don't want to get into the detail of whatever went on in that day. So you want to find a common denominator. It could be just sitting down with them and playing a game. It could be doing homework with them. It could be just sitting and having a snack together. Find a way to be able to create a common connection with them. And when you do, that's going to make a difference. The other quote that I want to share with you is from a 16-year-old. This is from Liberty Sturgill. She said, I didn't want to be here, but now I'm glad I came. I realized that it was very important. I learned how to be more confident and to reach for my goals, and I learned that I am good enough. When I have challenges, I learned I can pray and figure out what the problem is and then ask for help. For a 16-year-old to write something like that, those are their words. For them to be able to articulate that, that's an indication an impact is taking place. So step 4, key number 4, is to help youth move from hopeless to hope-filled. Do you want to comment on that, Jim?
Um, Kids these days, it used to be when, if somebody called you fat in the school, they, nobody took it to the point where they're at now, which is I don't want to live anymore mindset. And you have to be able to give kids a reason to feel hope. And the reason that they get, for the most part, is to be accepted by their peers, and equally important, to feel like they're a part of their family. Because all too often, families are breaking apart and kids are caught in the middle of that. So kids need to feel like, that they're loved, that people honor their voice, that people believe that they have a future. All of these things are so deeply important in the bigger picture.
So one of the things that takes place with young people that gives them hope is to find a connector. And whether you're a parent, whether you are an influencer of young people in a school system, or you're in ministry working with youth, whatever way that you're interacting with young people, the key is to start at the place where they are. What most people do, especially adults, is they focus on thinking the way adults think. Instead, you want to find a way to get into the mind of the young person and be at their level. I call it this: start where people are, start where young people are, not where you'd like them to be. Because oftentimes there's a gap from where they are to where you'd like them to begin, and there's a baby step that you need to take. So one skill is to take a baby step. Now, key number 5 is to discover what you can do in your community to make a difference. And so that's one of the things that caused Jim and I to want to do this podcast with you today is to be able to find out those like-minded people who care about young people. Maybe you're just a parent who is concerned about your own child or a grandparent who's concerned about a child that you are maybe connected with. Just today, I was talking with a grandmother who the parents died and they're taking care of the child. And so they're finding that that's a challenge to be able to deal with that young person after they've been dealing with the trauma of the death of their parents. You might be somebody in ministry. You might be an administrator. You might just be somebody who wants to make a difference in young people. And that's what Jim and I wanted to do with you today is to explore with you, to hopefully give you some ideas and to stimulate you with ideas to say, how can we unite together to make a bigger difference so that suicide isn't an issue in our society, that we reduce that because, again, one life can make such a difference. Any comments you want to share about making a difference in our community, Jim?
My phone rings off the hook with kids who are contemplating taking their lives. And one of the things in that scenario is that it spins around 24/7 in a kid's head. And they don't think about anything else. So I've had great success in having them become other centered, do something, for somebody else to make them feel good about who they are and what they're about. And this is something that should be a part of everybody's, looking at this situation is to create an opportunity for a kid to be other centered in their life so that they build self-worth, as we talked about earlier, so that they have a sense of purpose and they can go and they're able to not just make a difference in other people, but truly make a difference in themselves.
So another quote, here's Matthew Andres from age 17. He said, I realize today that this program is so important for anyone because without these ideas, that's why so many people commit suicide, because they don't have any self-esteem and they feel horrible about themselves. Each person, God's given each person a unique gift, and to find out what that specific purpose is. And that's what caused Jim and I to want to get together, to unite together, to see what we could do along with people just like you to make a difference in young people's lives. And when we do that, some amazing things are going to take place. Now, key number 6 is discover what you can do in your community to make a difference. So, Jim, what ideas do you have about that?
I started my charity with 22 special needs kids. And now my charity has just passed a milestone of really being able to help, indigent families and at-risk kids and, all the things that I wanted my charity's vision to continue. And we just passed 500,000 that we have served in 37 years. So I'm a great proponent of this particular situation of being out and making a difference. And I invite so often kids to be a part of things, and they step up and they start to believe that they can do something meaningful by actually doing it.
And Jim, that's a really good, important point because what oftentimes happens is young people are talked to instead of talked with. And if you really want to make a difference in young people, you've got to get them engaged. You've got to get them involved in something. They can't just be listening to a lecture or somebody, doing talk. They've got to have what I call experiential learning. And so that's what we do in our programs is share ideas and apply those ideas and do it in a fun way. And when you do that, then they learn and they're able to take on a whole new level of things. It's interesting that just yesterday, I happened to run into somebody I hadn't seen in 30 years. And they had one of their children attend to Get High on Life over 40 years ago. Hard to believe, but they actually did. Now she's a mother herself. And he was sharing that his daughter still talks about the impact that those ideas have had on her and her growing up. But now she's sharing it with the next generation. And I'm sure you see that, Jim, as well with what you're doing.
I've been very, very blessed, that wherever I go, all over the world, I've spoken, in all these countries to big, big audiences. My largest audience was 50,000 at the New Orleans Superdome. But I'm very fortunate that kids come up and remember and even feed back to me some of the things that they learned in the process of me sharing. But I discovered something that if I give an opportunity in my assemblies, and in the beginning it was very hard because I was standing in front of, people, and I would give a mantra and I would say, please, is there anyone there that, has had someone in their life that made a difference for them, that saved their lives? And I would say it over and over again. And until the first person came to the mic, it was like people coughing and looking around at each other. Once that first person came, there was a line around the block of people that wanted to share. My longest program was 11 and a half hours of kids coming to the mic to share their pain, share their difficulties, because they needed to share, because nobody was listening to them. And now they found an opportunity to be listened to.
As you see on the slide here, what are we looking for? We're looking for four things. We're looking for this life and leadership skills program for ages 8 to 18. That is what the Get High on Life program is geared to. We're looking for caring parents and grandparents who are committed to not only their own children, but also helping other children as well. We're looking for educators and people in ministries who care about kids, who are actively looking and seeking ways to really reach them and touch them. And finally, we're looking for teachers and trainers to facilitate these youth programs, because as you can kind of tell, Jim and I have got a little years on us. And so we need to impart these things to younger people so that they then can make an impact as well. So if you feel called, based upon the ideas we've shared today, that you know that you're being tugged in a way to say, I want to make a bigger difference in young people's lives. I want to make a bigger impact. Or maybe you know people we need to connect with. We want to invite you to reach out to us. And there are a couple ways that you can do that. First, you can learn more about this program by going to McGrane.com/GHOL. That stands for Get High on Life. That's again, McGrane.com/GHOL. Or you can contact me at 859-462-7929. So, Jim, I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to have this forum with you. Are there any final comments or questions you want to ask or bring up before we wrap up today?
I want to just take a little bit of a shot on what you just shared. There are, and I've started, hundreds of groups that meet on a regular basis, whether they be parents, whether they be educators, whether they be a combination of kids and, educators and parents. But to start it in your home, do it as an after school program, and you'll learn so much about how to deal with what these problematic situations are by just discussing and finding ways to be able to get past some of the things that we are dealing with today as a group. Because again, that whole concept of it takes a village, takes a village.
Thank you, Jim. And he brings up a great point. For example, if you're an individual or a parent, you can very simply get a copy of Get High on Life and you can go through the workbook with those children on your own, one-on-one. You can mentor someone. If you're in a classroom, this can be done in a class curriculum. It also can be done, you'll see on the web page that you have listed there, it's being done as a one day program. It can be done over a 6-week, 8-week, 12-week. Some people make it an entire year program. Some people use it as a mentoring program. This is being used all over the country. It's being translated in many other languages as well. The idea here is we wanted to stimulate those of you who care about kids to ask yourself this question. How can you make a difference? Jim has spent his lifetime. I have spent my lifetime caring about young people so that they grow up to be prepared to be outstanding citizens that make a difference, not just in their own lives, but the ripple effect of generations to come. So, Jim, I want to thank you for this opportunity to have this time with you, and we thank all of you that were being a part of this. Take action. Just don't let this be an idea that you just hear something about. You want to be able to take the next step, because it's in taking action.
I'd like to echo what Bill has said, because I believe so much in action. Because if you're thinking about something and you don't act to, make it happen, then it's just a thought that spins through your head. But if you take action, it grows with you. You learn in action that you can make some things happen that sometimes you don't even believe that you can do it.
There's a great statistic that shows that there's a 90% chance that if you don't do something with an idea that you get within 24 hours, that you'll never do anything with that idea. So take these ideas we've shared today, pray about it, have a conversation with somebody that you care with, and reach out to us and let us know how we can align with you, whether you're an individual, a parent, a family, a community, a church ministry, a school system, whatever it would be. Let us know how we can connect with you so we can make an impact in future young people's lives. Jim, again, I want to thank you so much for this opportunity to be together with you, and we thank all of you for being a part of it.
Well, the honor is mine.
Bye-bye, everyone.